internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Creation Sculpture. And today we are doing another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which we will discover color theory one color at a time. So what we've done so far in this series is been working on the triangle of the primary colors. So we've completed the red section of the triangle for the primary colors, and now we're working our way through the blue colors of it. So I'm using the primary colors that are in the Dharma Trading Co. kit, because when you go on the Dharma Trading Co., there is a section at the bottom of the acid dye colors that you can purchase for a beginner kit. So you will receive 6 primary colors, and you will receive also citric acid for starting out in your yarn dyeing journey. So I'm using those colors primarily because they're primary colors, and also there is a few secondary colors, and there's also black that is included in the kit. So this is a really great starter kit if you are just beginning in your hand-dyed journey. So those are the colors that we're using, and today we're going to be working with the Caribbean Blue, and we're going to be adding the green Kelly to have a comparison point when we're ready to add blue to our green Kelly in the color wheel, when we are going to be out of our primary triangle and we're going to be exploring the secondary color triangle. So let's get into this. Hello friends, it's another Color Wheel Monday where well, you join me basically. We are working our way through the color wheel one color at a time. So we're still working with our Caribbean Blue for the blue section of the color wheel. So we already added red, yellow. We didn't add blue because that's a little counterproductive, isn't it? And we did a gradient with the blue to recreate the add white effect, and we did add black as well. But now we are going to be adding our green Kelly, so that way we will have a reference when we come to work with the Kelly green later in the season. So we're almost done. Hey Zoe, don't do that, please. Move, whoosh, whoosh. So we're almost done with the Caribbean Blue for this portion. After the Kelly green, we're going to be adding ultraviolet into it, so we will have, like I said, a comparison point with the ultraviolet adding the Caribbean Blue versus Caribbean Blue adding the ultraviolet. So we are making our way because we've already done the entirety of the red color portion, and now we're almost done all the blue. After that we're going to be done doing the yellow, so it will be the triangle of the primary colors, and after that we're going to be working the sort of the opposite with the orange, violet, and green. So we're slowly but surely making our way through the color wheel one color at a time. So we're going to be doing our stock solution. So we're going to be doing 1% stock solution of Caribbean Blue and 1% stock solution of Kelly Green. What is a 1% stock solution? It is 1%, 1 gram of dye for 100 milliliter of our water. So we're going to be wearing our ventilator. I probably need to replace my filters, so this is something that you need to do quite often, is replace your filters. Not And I probably need to clean this up a little bit as well. Okay, so I will be wearing my mask while we are doing the stock solution, because we only have one pair of lungs and we don't want to get sick. So we're going to be starting with the Caribbean Blue. So I need 1 gram. So this is for this one, and now we're doing the Kelly green. Always make sure that you have zeroed out your scale. Oh, nice. Spot on. This is fantastic. I just love when that happens, because it doesn't happen that often. Not gonna lie. Now we're going to be adding our water. And now that it's no longer in a powder form, what I can do is remove my respirator. If you feel more comfortable, you don't have to remove it when you're working at all. You always want to try to do a little paste first when you're working your powder. And after that, you can work it a little bit more and make sure that it's being dissolved. Let's add up to our 100 milliliter line. Here we go. So this is a 1% stock solution, and if you had 100 gram of fiber, it would be a 1% depth of shade that you have created with those stock solution. So this is an easy way to remember what a 1% depth of shade can be. It's usually 1% of the weight of good. So if you have 115 gram, if you want a 1% depth of shade, you would need 1.15 grams of dry powder to make a 1% stock solution of that. So easy math sometimes. Let's grab our jars. So the jars, they don't have any acid in, and we are going to be adding the colors in a minute. So there's no acid, it's room temperature. And we have roughly 300 milliliters of tap water in the mason jars, so that way we have enough room for the yarn and the dye to play and have fun. So if you've seen the series so far, what we're doing is we're doing 1% depth of shades for all of the main color. In this case, it is Caribbean Blue. So to have 1% depth of shade for our 10 grams mini skeins of fingering stroll from Knit Pick, we need 10 milliliters from our 1% stock solution that we've made just now. So I just need to measure 10 milliliter for each and one of them. And yes, I do have some leftover at the end because in 100 milliliters, we have 10 times 10 milliliters. So I roughly have 40 milliliters left in the container. Now we're going to be adding the green. And like we've done previously, we're going to be doing from 0.05% depth of shade of green over here up to 1% depth of shade over there. So this one would be half and half of both colors at the end of it. And why I'm doing this, I like to see how little the color can make a difference. So 0.05% is it's it's 0.5 milliliters. So it's not a whole lot. Now here we're going to have 1 milliliter, 2.5 milliliter. Now I can switch to my syringe, which is a little easier on me. So we did 2.5 here. We're going to do 5 milliliters now. 5 milliliter. Now we need a 7.5 milliliter. And now we're going to be adding 10 milliliter. There we go. And I'm wondering how much the color will change, because just from the jar I can see that this one is like it's a blue green, and this one is definitely a green. So I'm just very curious to see how the final color will look like. It should be interesting to see the play in it, because we know that to create our green we usually need blue and yellow, and you know, blue is usually very potent, so we shall see what it looks like. We might end up with some teal. And I'm not mad about that because teal is a really lovely color. Okay. So it's been stirred, and there's no acid like I mentioned earlier, because the main reason why I'm never adding citric acid early is because that way it takes a little longer for the color to strike the yarn, and that way we can have a more uniform color at the end of it. And like mentioned earlier, we are going to be using our 10-gram mini skeins from Knit Pick Fingering Straw. That's going to be a very cute color. And another reminder is that I'm using those colors because they're pretty easy to find, and also when you're going through the Dharma Trading Co. website, in the acid dye section, they sell a kit. So in that kit you have primary colors, black also, so that way you can explore color theory and dyeing yarn with those primary colors. So I think it's important that we explore those colors, those primary colors, when we first start, because that way we can understand better how the colors are affected by the yarn itself, because we know that we're not working with a white canvas, right? We are working with yarn, and usually it's not fully white. There's sometimes a gray tint to it, a beige, sometimes a cream, simply due to the nature of either the sheep, or if you're using yak, or any other of those other animals like alpaca. So we need to understand how it works with the dyes, and working with the primary color is always good, because sometimes you can't afford right away to purchase pre-made colors, and also sometimes they reformulate the colors, so that it's annoying when they do that. I understand why they do it, but it's still annoying. And that can change your recipe if it's not exactly the same recipe um, that they've used and they've reformulated. So there's all those factors. So let's practice with the with the primary colors. Okay, so we have them in the jar. We're going to be putting them in the double boiler now. Okay, so let's add the mason jars into the double boiler. There we go. Let's add the water. And we still don't have any citric acid as of now in there. Okay, perfect. So we've added the water. We're going to turn on the heat. So usually what you want to do is reach between 85 to 95 Celsius in your can jars. And from there you would wait 30 minutes to let it cook properly, and then you will turn it off. So That's going to take a little longer because it's a double boiler situation here. And what we're going to do is in 15 minutes, I'm going to come back and I'm going to be adding the citric acid in every one of those cute jars. And I can already see from here, I don't know if you can see it, but here we still have like a blue tint, but over here, this is now green. It's a lovely green, but it's green. So green Kelly is pretty potent. This is what I'm understanding from this. So this is also I come back from that for that. This is also another reason why we want to work with the primary colors is to see which colors are more potent than the others, because now the Caribbean blue is very potent for with other colors. So with the red, the Caribbean blue was really very much taking over it. The green, not the green, the green Kelly here seems to be very potent, but there is blue in it as well. But when we worked with the yellow, it really worked nicely with the blue to create its own colors. So I guess that green, like blue and yellow together, creates green, and green is potent because of the potency of the blue, because usually you don't have a drastic color change with the yellow, but you have a very nice one. Anyways, those are just all. I'm starting to be tired. The day has been long, so I think I think it's just me mumbling. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so did we've turned on the heat? We're going to be waiting 15 minutes for the water to warm up a little bit before adding the citric acid in it. And yeah, and after that, we're just going to go from there. So, see you in a bit. So, it's been roughly 15 minutes since we've had them on the double boiler, and now I'm going to be adding the citric acid. I'm pretty much overkilling it with the amount of citric acid I just added. So, usually, a rule of thumb, 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 thumb. Okay, is about 1 tablespoon for 1 pound or 454 grams of fiber or yarn. And since we only have 10 grams, like what I just did is like half a teaspoon, so it's like overkill citric acid wise. I'm not too worried. I don't think we'll end up glazing the yarn because we have colors that are slower to absorb anyways and strike the yarn. So I'm not super worried about that. Now, I was thinking of what we're going to do when it times to conclusion for this color, and I think we're going to be comparing it with when we added the brilliant yellow to the blue, because I feel like we're going to have very similar colors. However, those ones will be slightly darker because we added green Kelly, and I feel that there's more blue in the green Kelly than there is yellow. So just due to that fact, I think when we compare it with adding the yellow, those will be pretty much the same colors but darker. So now that we've added the citric acid, we're going to wait it for, it's not quite at the 85 to 95 Celsius in there, so we're just going to wait for the water to reach that point, and then from there it's going to be half an hour on the stove. After that, we're going to just let it cool, like turn off the heat and let it cool overnight, and tomorrow we're going to be washing it. So I'll see you either later tonight or tomorrow. See you. Okay, so we've reached the right temperature. We still have some color, which was to be expected with Caribbean blue. So I'm very happy with this. So we're going to be turning off the heat, and we're going to let it cool down overnight, and I'm going to be washing this off tomorrow when it's fully cooled down. So I will see you tomorrow. Okay, so far what we've learned with Caribbean blue is that it has a tendency to bleed a little bit. So if we see a tint or a hue of a hint of blue in the water, we're not going to be worried as of right now. It's if we see an excessive amount of blue that we would be worried. So there's some colors that have a natural saturation in the yarn that is lower, I would say, than other colors. And Caribbean Blue and Kelly Green are one of those colors that as soon as you're going past the 0.5% depth of shades, you're going to see a whole lot of, well, not necessarily a whole lot. This is an exaggeration. I'm sorry. I do have a tendency to exaggerate. I'm apologizing for that. Why am I being so sorry so often? Anyways, yes, where was I? Okay, so they have a lower so they yeah, exactly, so their saturation point is lower than other colors, so it's just something that it's important to remind yourself when you're working with those colors, so that way you're not like freaking out like I've done in the past with some colors when I first started dyeing yarn. So no panic, no worries. And when I say that the saturation point, as soon as we hit 0.5% depth of shades, it's very true, because you will see, I will show you the mason jars they were sitting in a little bit after this, and that you will be able to see that there's a hint of colors in the first few, but that you actually can see the hue in the mason jars where we have the 1% of the shades for green Kelly and the blue Caribbean, and also like the 0.75 and the 0.5 depth of shades of the green Kelly green, and it's just a tiny hint of color in the first 3 mason jars. So I was not surprised that I had to work a little bit harder to get the excess out, but now we're going to watch the mason jar, and after that we're going to let the mini skein in the spin jar, and we're going to let them dry overnight. So you can see here that it's a tiny, okay, well, I do have garbage behind, but it's a very, very faint color, so it's always nice. So let's see the final result now. And here's the final result for adding the green Kelly to our Caribbean Blue. So on the left here, we have the adding green Kelly green, and on the right is when we did the experiment with adding the brilliant yellow. So when we were discussing the, hi Zoe, when we were discussing it in the pan, I thought for so this is my mistake. I thought that because we had a green, that the final color would be darker shade over this one. Move, please. Thank you. However, this is not what happened. So the green Kelly was a lighter compared to the brilliant yellow, and I think it makes more sense now that I thought about it. It's because since we already have some blue in the Caribbean Blue, and in the green Kelly to create the green, um, it will be lighter because there's less yellow in the sense. So we will keep a more blue tint to it, where this one went more on the teal and the actual green. But it really creates a very different, cute shades of the same colors, because when I'm looking at it, it's basically, it's basically the same colors, but a tad bit darker when it's only with the brilliant yellow. So this is where an exercise in proportion of your dye will make a difference. So basically what I mean by that is that because we have more blue in it instead of just like our 1% stock solution, okay Zoe, of the Caribbean Blue, we have a different, we obtain a different shade at the end within the same, like it's not, no, my mistake, it's not a shade, it's a different hue of the same color. So this is very subtle, but it was an interesting take. I I would say I prefer this one simply because the colors speaks a little bit more to me. I'm more on, I prefer blues over greens. So there's that. And honestly, it was very interesting to see that I could already tell when I was looking at it in the pots that the colors would be very, very similar. So it just shows me that I'm learning, and I'm gaining more experience, and I'm getting to a point where I have a more instinctual take to a dyeing yarn, in that, like, it's nice. I don't know. I'm starting to rumble. So if you liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing. And I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.